Hello and welcome to The Editor's Eye, and welcome to a short series about editing and about the greatest edits in movies. And we're going to start with one of the most brutal cuts, in fact two of the most brutal cuts ever seen in cinema, so discretionary warning advised. It comes from one of the most graphic and disturbing images in all cinema, and I use part of it briefly in my title sequence. But there's not just one cut, there's two cuts here. It comes from the film Chien Andalou, one of the very earliest films from the surrealist Spanish film director Luis Buñuel, a film he actually made with the painter Salvador Dali. And it has this incredibly shocking section, so be warned, even though it's 1929, and here it is. Now, clearly that's a really powerful image and a brutal bit of slicing, but there's actually a second brutal cut that comes just before this one, and it's a cinematic cut. As an editor, that's one that interests me. Now, a cut in life is an aggressive act, and a cut in film can also be an aggressive act. It could be something that provides impact and juxtaposition and shock. Now that means editors, very often in a fight scene for example, will cut at an impact moment, a shot or a punch. So you can use editing to create more impact, but you can also do the opposite, which is to use editing to cut away from the drama. And that's ingrained in the language of cinema right from its earliest days, because it's ingrained in our way of looking. Or rather our way of not looking. Go back and look at ancient Greek drama, which really is at the roots of our Western culture. And they had the rule that any violence that was to happen must happen off stage. You see the same idea recurring through many Greek myths as well. Orpheus and Eurydice, or the Medusa. The idea that if you look at something awful, it might severely damage you. So what do we do in cinema terms? We cut away from the awful thing. Even in Hitchcock's Blackmail, made pretty much exactly the same time as Chien Andalou, you see that the murder is still separated from us, even though Hitchcock tries to bring it as close to us as possible. And this is where the use of the image by Buñuel is so terrifying. He shows us violence that's about to happen, and then he cuts away from it. And he cuts away to an image that's poetically similar to it. Clouds in front of the moon remind us of the knife in front of the eye. So the cutaway satisfies us dramatically. We feel it's told us something about the image of violence, but it's given it in a metaphorical way, in a distance way, in a translated way, through an image. So in film language we've achieved the effect of cutting away, but what does he immediately do straight afterwards? He unexpectedly cuts straight back to the graphic act itself. So there is in fact a brutal cut just before the brutal cut. And this makes the whole thing all the more disturbing and effective. So it's not just the awful act of the eye being cut, it's the act of cutting away from that act so we think we've been saved from it, and then brutally cutting back to it, confounding our own expectations, even here, right at the early start of cinema. Like I said, the two most brutal cuts in cinema, and here they are again.